Hi everyone! My name's Paige Schultz. I've been the author and writer of Paige's Book Blog. This is my first ever video blog or video thing like this, so bear with me. This week I thought that I would do a surprise video blog just to introduce myself so you guys can see my face and learn a little bit about me and see who I am. I also thought it would be a fun little surprise right before spring break. This week, for this video blog, I'm going to be rating the books that I've read so far. I've only read 6 books, which isn't really a lot. Please ignore my dog in the background. 6 books is not a lot, but it puts me ahead of schedule for reading 15 books by the end of the year, or 2 books ahead of schedule for reading 20 books by the end of the year. So I'm still on track. We're still looking good for that one. So let's dive into the books that I've read this year. So my least favorite book that I've read this year is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. This book was still so good. I still loved it. But it was just kind of boring. It really, it took a lot to first, understand what was going on and, kind of just get the plot built and whatever. So the first half was kind of boring and, I understood what was going on, but, not a whole lot. Towards the end, there is a fantastic twist. It's about this family that has a private island off the coast of Massachusetts, and it kind of just tells the story about that. They're trying to live this perfect lifestyle, so they're all about money and perfectness, and they hide all of their flaws, and so they lie a lot. But the main character, Candace, got injured somehow on the island, and it starts off with telling you that, but she doesn't know how it happened. So the whole story is kind of her trying to figure out what happened and her learning about that. But she has to figure out on her own, and no one will help her, and that's kind of the source of it. But yeah, it's kind of boring. It was my least favorite, but still a 4 out of 10 book. The next one is One of Us is Lying by Karen McManus. This one, also very good. Not my typical romance book. Neither is We Were Liars. Both of these, not my typical romance books, but I liked this one better. It was more of a mystery thriller type deal. These 4 characters get put in detention the very first page of the book. And in this detention, someone dies. And so they're trying to figure out how this person died and who did it and everything. And these 4 characters are made out to be murderers, basically. And so there's a big trial and all of this stuff, just trying to figure out who killed the person that died in detention in high school. I loved it. It just wasn't my favorite compared to others, I think, because it wasn't a romance. But at the end, there's a little, it's after the epilogue that I almost missed, but it kind of just ties up some loose ends about some of the romances that do happen in the book, and it's really cute, but just not my favorite. I kind of predicted some of the things, and I think that's why, but still very good. At number 4, we have In 5 Years by Rebecca Serle. I love this book. I read it in a day. It's very thin, but still good. This book made me cry. I think I rated this one a 4 out of 5 cry rate. Out of the book itself was also a 4 out of 5. So this was about Danielle. She lives with her boyfriend, and she falls asleep after getting proposed to, and she sees the exact day 5 years in the future. And so throughout the book, she's trying to prevent that from happening, what she saw in this vision, but she only saw it for an hour, so she doesn't actually know what happened, but based on what she saw, she's trying to prevent it. She's trying to stop everything from happening. And when the person in her vision comes into her real life, she jumps on everything that she was putting off. So she lives in her work and she sees in numbers and she's so focused on her work, but when this person from her vision came into her life, she jumped on everything that she was putting off for the 5 years. I loved it. Also a little bit predictable. It really hit hard for best friends. It wasn't like necessarily romantic stuff, but like your best friend, like for me it hurt because I couldn't imagine going through that with my best friend. So it was so good. I cried so much. I loved it. Number 3 is called It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I read that one on my phone, so I'll insert a picture of it right here. This one was so good. It touched on some abuse topics, so there's a trigger warning with that. It talked a lot about abuse, and the main character, Lily, she grew up with a rough life at home, and it tells her home life, but then now she's like in her 30s, living in Boston by herself, and she meets this man, and they meet, and she starts working with this man's sister, not knowing it was this man's sister, and it kind of just tells their love story, and she realizes that she put herself in a situation of what her home life was like growing up, so you'll just have to read and find out. I loved it, and I think this is my number 3 because of the quotes that came from it during the time that I read it. Like, I wrote about this in my blog earlier this week. The quotes, there aren't bad people, they're just people who do bad things, and the quote, what's the other quote? Oh, the quote that says sometimes people's actions don't hurt you, it's the love that hurts you, or something along those lines. Those made me cry so much. Just because of the story behind the quotes and what I was going through in my personal life, I felt like I don't totally agree with either of those quotes, but that was the reason why that book is number 3, and it was phenomenally written, and all the books that I read by Colleen Hoover are amazing, although they all do talk about touchy subjects, so I would beware of that if you go to read any of her books. Number 2 is a book that I just finished called The Whisper Man by Alex North. This one was a thriller and not my typical romance book, but it's still number 2. I loved it. The beginning was kind of boring, but the rest of the book was just so well written, and the plot of it was so good that I wasn't expecting things to happen, because usually I can predict things like this, but this one was so good. I loved it. This little boy and his father moved to a new town, and when they're moving, another little kid, Jake's age, goes missing, and they're trying to look for him for 2 months, and the way he disappeared was similar to ways that other little boys had disappeared in the past, so they're trying to figure out who did it, because that kidnapper was in jail, and they were trying to figure out how they were related, and it was so good. I loved it. The end was good. It wasn't, I was kind of hoping for something a little bit darker, which is horrible, but the ending was so good. I loved it. I don't think I cried during this book, but if the end was different, I probably would have. And my number one book of 2021 so far is The Light We Lost by Jill Santinople. This book got me. I cried. It's a 5 out of 5 cry. I wrote about this in one of my blogs. It was so good. So the Lucy and Gabe meet at college, and of course it's like love at first sight. They meet on 9/11, which a lot of people had problems with, actually. On Goodreads, the app that I use to watch book or rate my books and track what books I read, a lot of the reviews had an issue with them meeting on 9/11 because they were like, of course they took like the worst situation in America and they made it into this big love story and this big romantic thing. But I didn't like it, but I also kind of did, because they took something bad and made it good, although their relationship wasn't all good. I feel like it just made it, their point of finding light in the dark was kind of cute, and I fell for it, but a lot of people had issues with it, so I rated it like a 4 out of 5, knowing that, but I still liked it. So this guy was kind of just like a drop everything no matter what kind of guy for her, and even after she got remarried, he would call and she would drop everything and go to him. And it kind of just hit hard for me. I really liked it. 5 out of 5 cry. The end was so sad. I loved it. This was definitely number one, no questions asked. I don't want to spoil it for you guys, so I'm not going to tell you any more about it, because if I keep talking about it, I will spoil it. But it kind of just talks about how their life changes while they're apart, but they also like are always on the same page. Like they're always reflecting each other, and I love it. So those are my top 6 books of 2021, although they're the only books that I've read. Next, I'm reading the book The Girl He Used to Know by Tracy Graves. I found it. I got this one for Easter, actually. I read the first 3 chapters so far, and I like it. I think this one could be interesting, but I'm really excited for my next book called The One to Watch. I don't know who that one's by, but I heard a lot of good things about that one. So then my next 2 books I'm really excited for, and hopefully I'll finish them over spring break, and I can have blogs for you guys afterwards. Thanks for watching and reading.